listening live to the Two Extreme Horror Show. I'm your host, Rob. With me tonight is my guest, the real Dr. V, the real Dr. Venkman himself. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Doing okay.
Are you feeling frail?
Feeling a little bit winded.
Tonight's movie, 2001, Frailty, an all-time classic in my opinion of the horror genre, if we want to call it that. The reason why we're doing this film tonight, Doctor, as if you didn't already, was recently on our a Top 10 Tuesday show, Anglet team from I Love Comics, I and yourself, we're going over our best movies of 2001. And after going through mine, I went, wow, I knew Frailty was in my top 10, but it just kept climbing the list, climbing. And after comparing it to everything that was there that I saw and liked, Frailty is my best movie of 2001. I think it's phenomenally acted. I think there's only maybe one or two little silly things in it, but overall, with Bill Paxton being a first time director, I think he hit a home run with it, and his performance is just outstanding. So to me, love, love, love this movie a lot. I want to hear your initial thoughts on it. And let me ask you why you give them. Had you ever seen the movie before?
Well, this movie, I guess it's different, but it's a thriller. It's a drama. It's no typical movie I normally don't watch. I just pass over these because I just see the guy with the Otis axe. And this movie came out. There was already another movie with a guy who was kidnapping girls, and he's called Otis and had an axe. So I figured this was just another cookie cutter thing horror movie. So, going back and watching it, just watching Bill Paxton, and just seeing this stuff, it's like I mean, I feel bad for the kids, man. It's like, but you see that one kid right away, his younger brother Adam, who is basically acting just like his dad. I'm like, oh man, he's messed up too. Um, I felt bad for the older brother Fenton. He's such a happy he had such a childhood, and all of a sudden it just went downhill. And I kind of wonder if the reason this happened, like his dad was seeing this stuff, is because he just snapped because his wife died. Plus he drank a lot too. Ham soda. I mean, what's in that stuff? That soda. Sorry, ham beer. But I
Piss
mean,
water.
it's
That's what it is.
something's in it, man. Because like, was a kid drinking it too? Because the kid was seeing things. But
Well, yeah, I
but
mean, I can see where you say it's a thriller. I mean, and because it is about a serial killer, the God's Hand serial killer, and it takes place in Texas. So there's that southern kind of, not gothic, but almost like religious bent to it because, they live right next door to the Rose Garden, which is a cemetery, I believe. And also you see them walking, the brothers, in front of church. But let's just start from the very beginning. Let's talk about it as people file in here and while we're listening and going live. Um, you get this shot of the FBI place, and you get a younger Matthew McConaughey walking in, very juicy looking guy. But when McConaughey, when he's to me not playing the cutesy guy, I think he's even better. And I've said that about a few actors when they don't play against their types, or they play against types. I think they're better. I'm not a big fan of certain actors, but when they dump into this kind of role, like Tom Hanks, I think they're better, and I like to see that. So here, McConaughey comes in and he meets an FBI agent. He walks, through there, and Powers Booth, I want to talk about for a moment because to me, he's somebody that while we love him here on the Extreme Movie Show, he's obviously I think been passed for a few years. This guy was in so many good things. He was in a great movie called Southern Comfort in the early 80s. He was Philip Marlowe back on the HBO days, which is a wonderful little, I think, two-season series. He's played some other major characters over his career, but he's just, I think, a natural Texan. He's just a tough SOB looking guy, and he just carries a certain authority, a certain weight to his presence on screen, which I think is sorely lacking today in a lot of movie theaters. But McConaughey's character, we don't really hear what his name is, but then he identifies himself as, one of the brothers. And as he's talking to Powers Booth, he's basically saying, hey, I've got information about this serial killer that's, happened back in 1979. And so Powers Booth is sitting there like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because he's like, oh, I see a picture of this is you and your mom. And, they start talking and everything. And so it's kind of the way that the story sets up, where they, start talking about it in the present tense and then they go back and they look at it. So when they get into 1979, it's about the two boys you mentioned, Fenton and Adam. I think one's 12, like maybe one's like 9, roughly speaking. They're in Thurman, this little Texas town. And I got to say this about Bill Paxton's character. You can say Bill Paxton's a great actor. You can say he plays it straight. But what I thought was very strong about this, which I think magnifies your point about how good the boys are in this movie, is he's a single dad because his wife, I think, passed giving birth to, I think, the second kid. So he's obviously not got a girlfriend. He's not an alcoholic. He's a single father, but they're a functioning family, and you don't see really something like that too often in movies. Period. Whether it's a comedy, a horror movie, a drama, it's just there's always some dysfunction in the family. And while this movie's got a lot of weird stuff in it, the bottom line is they are a pretty, it seems like, healthy, normal, decent family in late 70s Texas. So when this movie opened up and you saw the kids and everything, what was going on in your head?
Well, when I originally saw the flashback about the kids, I'm thinking like, first of all, that kid looks like the kid from Stand by Me. That's the first thing popped in my head, the main character. But then I started wondering what other movies he's been into. But yeah, this movie, yeah, it's the '70s. Obviously, normal typical kids. You got the kid on the banana seat.
Hmm.
Kid wants to hang out, and his dad's like, "Well, no, 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 it's not a good time, and we're busy." It's like, and you just see this kid like he's just his dad is just suddenly snaps, and he's frightened, doesn't know what to do. He loves his dad. His mom died, doesn't want his dad to die. To go away too. Doesn't want to split up his family. But he won't leave. He keeps saying his brother. He's like, dude, we gotta leave. If we don't leave, he's a chance that they could both get hurt. Your dad could turn on them. Uh, it's just like so messed up. I mean, it's beautiful scenery though. But I kept thinking this movie, like they brought the Rose Garden, and I'm like, is this a Stephen King movie? I
Yeah,
was, as I got that vibes. This movie came out what 2000? It had the
2001.
it had the mid to late '90s like drama vibes. Just the way that he had it's him narrating over the story, and then it's raining and all that stuff. It's just like wow, this movie is like it felt like I was gonna start watching Mulholland Drive next or something like that or some kind of other movie.
Yeah, I think I
Um,
think voiceover adds to it because from the get go there's a sense of dread, but you don't really see why because, like I say, it's a functioning family. But to your point, the
yeah,
father wakes the kids up and he basically says, you know, son, sons, I've got a vision from God and I'm gonna kill demons and he's so it's hard not to be a whack job at delivering a speech to your kid, but I kept thinking to myself with Paxton's performance that he delivers it in such a way that it's believable as much as that kind of
hmm
subject matter can be. But I think
he's creepy.
that in itself, yeah, it magnifies the point of what's going on with the two kids because the youngest kid totally idolizes, the older brother, but daddy and he sees what daddy sees. He believes in daddy, but he's still that young, idealistic, carefree age as a kid, where he's young and innocent. Whereas the 12-year-old, he's starting to think about girls, and he's closer to puberty, and he's the more serious one. And being an older brother, there's that natural built-in responsibility that, at least back in the day, you would say that between brothers exists. I know I'm a brother, and I know a lot of people have certain feelings for their siblings based on their order and if they have brothers or sisters or combination of it. So what I really liked about this was, you're right, the older one, Fenton, was basically kind of had to all of a sudden lose his innocence, grow up before his time was ready. It's kind of that shock of being an adolescent and basically saying, okay, this is what we're going to need to do. But the thing is it kind of almost unfolds in a way that seems kind of reasonable, like maybe daddy was drunk, maybe he was on drugs, not that that was ever inferred, but they just kind of wake up the next day, don't talk about it, everything goes on. He drops him off at school and says, oh, by the way, don't forget what I talked to you about last night. And then that's when we're like, oh crap, this is real, what's going on? But Paxton's character doesn't really know. He just says he had a vision. And I don't know if this was goofy, but the vision coming from a reflection from like a sports trophy or whatever it is, I thought was a little odd. But I guess people see visions wherever they look. So,
I just like this whole derangement thing. I'm thinking like, oh man, like, and how come nobody questioned like who's Otis? Why is Otis written on the name of the X? I'm like, they never answer it.
well,
But
right before we get to Otis, I mean, he basically says his kid, yeah, my power is to see demons, and he has a vision, which is basically, well, this is one of the things I thought was slightly goofy, and it's Otis. So let's get this out of the way. he's driving around and he gets a vision, and it's a barn somewhere in the middle of a field, and he sees a light, and it's kind of cool how it's shot because you go, well, that's just a sunbeam. Or is it a vision? There was nothing fancy with it, and that's what I liked about this movie. It was very subtle when it came to those things, and so he walks in and he sees this light on the axe with Otis on it. I honestly did not look that up. I do not know the reference for it. Have no idea what it's supposed to mean. And legendary items should have names to them, which I thought was kind of funny. Like I had tweeted earlier as a joke, I'm a fan of the TJ Hooker
Oh,
podcast, and I put on there, oh, it should be, TJ Hooker going to Thurman to avenge Romano, who impregnated McConaughey's wife because she's there pregnant at the end of the movie, and then it should be like Hook's Caliber versus Otis in a standoff because
I
Hooker's really
mean,
a demon and who would
well,
win?
when you think about it, like Otis is the name of the axe, Excalibur is the name of the sword. It's like who else? It's like I'm just waiting for somebody else to start naming off their weapons.
Yeah, because I think it was the convenience of the writing that the second item had to basically be a pipe rather than the axe for certain reasons later. But I just think that's why they had two rather than the one. I think having a name, of course, gives it a certain
I didn't even think about that. The
life.
pipe. I'm like, he's like, they're asking, well, what is no, because I was thinking about because the kid's like, well, what superpowers are we gonna get? Oh, weapons. Like, oh, well, no, we get them. I didn't count the pipe as a weapon. I figure it was just like something he just grabbed.
Yeah,
You
it's like a
know,
slapjack in the hood. Here in the Pine Hills,
yeah.
in the palace,
So,
we've got a
uh,
weapons shop, and slapjacks.
what has,
Everybody's got to have it.
but it was funny though when Fenton like because you remember he made him dig that like the he's like here I want you to dig this ditch and like and it has to be like this like big giant rectangle it's so deep of course because he hates his dad because he's sick of this crap he just wants him to leave everyone else stop killing people so he refuses to wear gloves gets blisters his dad's like oh you hurt yourself he's like I still love I want you to wear gloves, he's like, nah, fuck my dad. Like, he's like, I hate God, and I'm never gonna pray, but I'm gonna do this. Just to spite him. And this kid does. I'm like, he digs his giant like ditch in the yard. I'm thinking like, it's almost like a pool, but I'm like, oh no, he's killing a killing bunker. It's
Kill
like
room. Yeah.
kill room. I was like, man, I'm thinking, kid, now did you get permits for this? Because little small towns, they're everybody knows everything. And obviously, that sheriff did not know anything at all because he is not a good sheriff.
Well, you're right. In a small town, people usually are in everybody's business. They know what's going on. But what I thought was pretty interesting here is, he gets Otis the axe and all that, and then a little bit later, he just walks up to the kids while they're watching cartoons. He's like, "I've got this," and he just unrolls a pipe. They're like, "What?" But then he's like, I don't know what the gloves are for. And then he's like, oh, I get it now. And it's funny because he seems not stupid, but I'm not going to say smart, but just like a simple everyday average Joe because he gets his vision while he's at work looking, up at I think he's just changing oil or working on the underside of a car. And of course, you get the one shot of like the angel or whatever, and he starts writing down these
Mm-hmm.
names. So that was interesting, him divining these names because the list I think is supposed to be seven. I don't know if that's like the seventh seal and everything else too, with and all
Well,
that. But
remember he locked his son down, a friend down for 7 days.
that's true. Yeah, because I'm backtracking a little bit because I a lot of this movie is not the way it finishes. It's all about the build up and the performances because you go, okay, Paxton's character is just going to be this way through it. And he's not a happy guy. You don't think he's a bad guy, but you're like, oh, Christ. And the real horror to me, not necessarily a thriller part to it, is really what the kids go through. Because to your point, he kills the first lady, blonde, and then he puts the hand on there, and he kind of does the dead zone sort of thing where he kind of like sees something, but we don't
Yeah,
see it. And
yeah,
we're like,
yeah.
oh, geez. And rewatching it
He was
again, going back and just watching the kids when certain things happen, there's some really great shots because, to your point, you see Fenton, the older kid, basically looking, and he's got this look of disgust on his face, like, man, this is getting worse. I can't believe it. What am I gonna do? But then, you get Adam, the younger kid, like, I believe you, Daddy. I believe you. And he's like, I knew you would. And yet, Paxton's still like, Fenton, I love you. I don't know why you don't see him. I'm really sorry. Hope that you do. He's not basically saying, hey, you're a loser kid because you don't believe me. He basically treats him like a young adult. So I think it's hard, obviously, being a killer of God, that you're going to treat your kids normally. But that being said, he treated them like a father would in a certain situation. Then he goes and he kills the second one, and this is where he gets the family, and this is where it gets disturbing because Adam, the younger kid, he's like, "I'll help you, Daddy. I'll do it."
I know.
And the older one doesn't want to do it. And of course, the guy driving does look like a little creepy pedo guy. Trying to watch what we
Yeah.
say here, with the stream, but again, same thing. They bring him back after he whacks him and puts his hand on him. You don't see anything. You're like, okay. And
He
third
looks
time's a
it look
charm.
you see Bill Paxton doing this and he's shaking her off. I'm like, it's just like he's like abducted by aliens. It's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like he's like, it's just yeah, just look. That's just it. Just I because when I was watching this movie, I got a sick feeling to my gut. I was like, please don't show him actually chopping up the bodies. I'm like, oh, good. It's like because imaginations, but I'd rather I could deal with that, but I don't need to see like body parts. You could hear them when they dump them into the graves. Hear dump 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 limbs. Like I was like, oh, it's so gross. But yeah, the biggest question of this whole movie is like, there's a rose garden in a community, and does none of the church ladies take care of the roses? It's like
Well, they had to bury the bodies
I was
somewhere.
because yeah,
Holy
they're burying
ground.
the bodies, but man, it's like you think that like people would notice like, hey, what's all these fresh graves here?
For what it is, yeah, it was ignorable to me. I mean,
Yeah,
it served its point,
I just think it's a little bit of weak writing right there part that point. They should have explained more. Say this is or that nobody takes care of this, because it's right in their backyard. The rose garden is. You think they would have said explain what more?
Yeah, and it's true because there is a scene in there where Fenton and Adam are walking home and they're kind of talking about stuff, and Adam, the younger one, who's everything cool with Daddy, is like they showed him at the beginning, walking past the church through the garden to their house, and so Adam wants to cut through like he normally does to go back home, but Fenton, knowing that they had buried a body in there, was like, no, I'm gonna go around or whatever. Like he doesn't want to be reminded of the evil that's going on, and the fact that him being the older brother and now acting like he thinks in his mind a responsible adult or person in this situation is going to have to figure something out. And so I thought seeing those little touches with the kids as we go on through this movie are pretty interesting to me. Which brings us to the where you were talking about a little while ago about how he basically makes them dig this big hole, root cellar, kill shelter, whatever you want to call it. And then the younger brother, brings them the glass of water, and they kind of squabble, but not really fight. It's not like I hate you. It's just he doesn't know what to do, and you can just see him getting pissier and pissier as the movie goes on.
What do you call a butthead? He threw the dirt at him. Hey, wait, butthead.
Yeah, so that brings us to the third body that they bring home after he locked up his older kid Fenton for like a week. And there's a cool scene in there with Adam like pouring the water through the hole down to
Yeah.
get him to drink. That was really really cool because he comes out and he's like, "Yeah, Daddy, I believe. I'm with you." And you're like, "This kid's delirious. What the hell's going on?" So at this point, what's going on in your head?
Well, I already knew what was going to happen. I'm like, because some of these movies were predictable. Certain scenes like that.
Sure.
Because the parts I liked, the best parts is when they showed the grown up version of I don't know, say who it is, but they show Matthew McConaughey with the cop.
Hmm.
Because I prefer that more than them just showing him just killing the bodies, and stuff. It's just like it got repetitive.
Yeah, and it works to them cutting back and forth because, like I say, Powers Booth is pun intended, really powerful presence, and them cutting back about every 15 minutes or so does give you a chance to kind of not think about the alleged holy aspect of this or religious or whether that offends you or not, but it just shows you that okay, something's happening. This is building towards something, and they're literally driving to him because of this point. Powers Booth is like, yeah, I don't know if I believe you and whatnot, and they're driving. So McConaughey just looks great. He's just so solemn. He's just got this look on his face, and because at the beginning of the movie, basically, you saw somebody shoot himself in the head, and he was basically saying, "Hey, my brother killed himself, so I promised him that I would bury him in the rose garden. That's where the rest of the bodies are. I'll show you. And Powers Booth is like, well, let's go. And so they're driving a couple hundred miles to where this town is. And it's in a rainstorm. It's late at night. So this third body that they bring home, it's a guy with the tire iron, and Fenton, the older kid, was supposed to help out, but kind of doesn't. So it kind of almost
Well,
goes
yeah,
bad
remember
here.
he got a vision. Remember that's how they built this up is that Fenton was locked away. Somebody got to get delirious. He said he basically he just went crazy. And he basically then he saw a vision. And that's why he told his dad he saw a vision, and he's like, and this is and, I'll show you. So he led him to the guy with some guy with a Harley, who basically just was calling his old lady a whore and all that stuff. He's like basically a real scumbag.
Yep.
And because they basically Bill Paxton, he's like trying to be the good Samaritan, like the nice parent is like, hey, our van broke down at all. They got this old like '70s ugly Chevy van. Oh, so it. I thought Volkswagens were bad. This is like a Volkswagen like trying to be cool. Uh,
He was
no,
driving around a
but
sweet El Camino back in the day. I noticed that.
yeah, yeah, I know. I'm like, what happened to El Camino, man? Bring that back. Not your kill van. This is a shaggin' wagon.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but so yeah, they're like our tire our thing broke down, but we don't have a tire iron. Can we borrow yours? So the guy goes to the garage, and basically they're gonna knock him out. But the thing is that what's his name makes noise and distracts him, and then so he sees Bill Paxton gonna hit him. So then Fenton has to hit him in the back of the head, kind of stuns him, and then he gets knocked out by Paxton. No,
Who's
so they brought him
injured,
back.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So they brought him back to their little kill shelter underground. Uh, before this, remember they killed the sheriff. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they killed the carrot. I thought that was like I didn't call that that sheriff. I would have killed myself. That's how stupid he was. Without me.
And I know understand what you're saying, but I will say again, it's not that way culturally now in too many places, but in smaller towns and 30, 40 years ago, even here, around the Pine Hills Palace and all that, people looked out for each other. There was a sense of community and neighborhood which doesn't exist for the most part anymore. So yeah, if you saw a kid doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing or not in school, you would call up the other parents, and it wasn't a snitch thing. It
Well, yeah,
wasn't you're
yeah.
trying to get him in trouble. It was legitimately looking out for it. So I can kind of forgive that considering they're a very small town, in the late 70s going on too. So it fits. It may be a little weak, but it's good enough for what the story needs to be.
But anyway, though, this is the biker guy that got dogged down there, and here you see Fenton gripping the axe and everything. So and he's like at the he's sitting there with the gloves, and he's like basically just looking deranged like Bill Paxton.
And this is
Bill
this
Paxton
moment
goes,
that Bill Paxton said, "I've been waiting for this moment for this to happen, son," because he wants to feel that bond with him. He wants his son to believe, not just because he wants him to be an agent of God like him and Adam, but also as a family unit to all be together. So he's really sincere about it. And then,
well, because Bill Paxton had originally said like the angel told me that you're a demon. I don't believe that you're my son.
yeah,
Yeah, so he gets ready. He gets up the swing. He's getting ready because Bill Paxton touched the guy. And so that's this guy's scum. He's like, kill this guy. Come on, do it. And Bill Paxton stands off the sides, and the kid's gripping. He's just kind of like, and then he swings it into Bill Paxton's chest, right in his heart.
yeah,
And Bill Paxton's kind of like just like, what?
it's a nice
How
chunky
could?
sound in there, and you're like, "Oh, Bill Paxton got whacked." I didn't know that I would see that, but I'm not
Yeah.
surprised, I guess.
So he stumbles back down. He's sitting there, and here comes Adam. Comes over and he whispers at Adam, he's like, go this. And so here, Fenton's trying to catch his breath, and all of a sudden the camera pans behind Fenton, and you see Adam. He's got the little axe, and he kills the biker dude.
Yeah, because the biker dude was yelling like he was trying to get up or and you're like, holy crap!
Yeah,
And this movie. I remember when I saw it. It cost about 11, 12 million to make. It made about 20, so it made some money, but that's not a lot of
yeah,
money back 2001. So it's a small hit, I would call it. But I just remember the few people that seemed to have watched it all kind of said the same thing. This movie's gross. It made a little kid kill somebody, and I'm like, you're missing the
yeah.
friggin' damn point for God's sakes, because you didn't think the kids would really kill. I didn't, even with everything that's going on. I really honestly was not expecting that. Were you?
Well, Adam, kind of a little bit. I mean, I know Fenton was definitely gonna, either he's gonna kill his dad. He's gonna become either his dad's gonna try to kill him or he's gonna kill his dad.
Right.
I knew that, but and I was like, Adam, like, well, Adam's messed up, and I saw him I'm like, when he said he was whispering in his ear, I knew something was up. I just didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So, because remember when we started off in the beginning, though, he says like my brother's a killer. So the kind of in the back of my head, I kind of half expected it a
Hmm.
little bit, but yeah, but I kept saying I kept thinking in the back of my head when you see Fenton, older Fenton, man, McConaughey, uh, and he's sitting there with the cop. He's gonna handcuffs. He's in the back of the squad car, and he's taking over to the Rose Garden in
Hmm.
that town. And I'm thinking right there, I'm like, he's gonna kill him. He's on his list.
Yep.
And I was like, come on. I was like, because it's Dark Knight's rating and all stuff, and I was like, but what threw me is the plot twist at the end. It's not Fenton. It's Adam.
Exactly.
I know.
Exactly.
That's when I was like, wow. That's like okay.
Well,
Because
yeah, because him and Powers Booth, are getting there, and McConaughey's telling him, the whole story and everything, and we're pretty much almost at the end of the movie at this point with the three kills and everything else there too. So, yeah, you're right. I think it's true. You were going to see whether or not Fenton was going to try to kill Dad or vice versa. You weren't necessarily expecting the younger one, although you knew he was capable of it. But yeah, that's the thing with Powers Booth, and if you're not paying attention to the dialogue as they're going,
yeah, the thing is that we never saw Adam though kill the biker guy. We just saw him swing the axe up, raise it up, and charge forward towards the camera. The thing
true.
is, you always notice though, what really bothered me though is when Bill Paxton would kill the guys with the axe, the kids would be standing back there. None of them got sprayed with blood.
I'm not worried by that.
Like you think you'd hit a artery or a main vein artery and just spray everywhere, you know,
Not if he's in the chest or the gut.
or
Yeah.
the head, because remember he was chopping the head off first.
Well, I think to your point, the fact that they didn't show the violence made it a lot better and gruesome. And like I said, the way they would do it, to your point, it was that camera shot from the ground, usually looking up, I believe, with him swinging the axe down. He's got that fury in his eyes, and his kids are in the back watching. And so you're watching these kids every single time something happens. Their expression is more intense, whether it's one way or the other. It
Yeah,
seems like Adam is a
yeah,
bit
because
more, like, oh, you go get it, Daddy. You angel of God, where his found like, oh Jesus, I got to really, do something here. But yeah, the whole thing here is to resolve is that McConaughey's character is not Fenton, it's Adam. So really, the person that shot themselves in the head earlier was Fenton, not Adam. So the whole thing
and
was
he didn't shoot himself in the head though. That was
correct.
see
Correct. That was a
he
swerve.
lied.
Yes, yes. But I keep going. Okay, he's gonna kill Powers Booth, but that kind of like makes the whole movie a moot point because it doesn't make sense why he would do it. Right now, everything's been consistent with what's going on, but you're going, yeah, these guys are just a whack job, and yes, there's a religious element to it. But what happens is there's the reveal of Powers Booth's character, the FBI guy, being the one that killed his mother. Now we don't know why. And this is where I thought this was kind of weak or whatever. But when you go back, they at least slipped in three times at the very beginning, where he's looking at the pit, where McConaughey's looking at the picture of Powers Booth and his mom from back in the day. He makes a comment about it, and then he says to him, and this is where Powers Booth gets that oh shit look on his face, where McConaughey says something along the lines of like, well, that's not going to bring your mother back. And the thing is when he touches somebody, he sees what's going on, and so he touches them, and this is the reveal to us that it is absolutely true that when he touches them, he does see what crimes that they've committed. And so you see Powers Booth killing his mom in a flashback, and Powers Booth, the victim, as it were, is aware that the other person's experiencing that too, because he looks overwhelmed, like how did you know? How did you know? And that this is pretty intense because one, you're right. There's the switch, and so now Adam's the this religious killer, but it's also right and true. So it goes back to Bill Paxton's performance. You go, okay, he just wasn't a deranged guy that came across as a loving dad. It was all real, and it sounds hokey, but the last
Yeah,
little few minutes here, I think, is kind of like a good coda. It's like, okay, the movie's over, but what really does happen there? Because yeah, he kills them, because then he's the last name on that list that he had divined, 20 years ago or whatever it was. I did
yeah,
think that was
yeah.
kind of cool. What did you think?
That was his dad's name, right? Or on his dad's list? Or was it? Was it? Yeah,
Yep.
he was continuing his dad list. So what threw me at the end is like remember when they called the station and Powers was talking to asking to see if the sheriff's there. He's
Hmm.
no, he's out of town right now. And you see at the end, guess who's the sheriff? It's Adam.
That's right, McConaughey's character. So the FBI agent, or they cut the FBI place, and they're really looking for the wrong person. So they go and swap the house, find all this information. They think they have everything solved, so that it kind of not absolves Adam, but it kind of basically puts him in the clear because as the sheriff of the town and them looking at Fenton's stuff, they get to do what they wanted to do as far as him getting killed and him continuing being, a god
Yeah,
killer, if you will. But the FBI agent that we saw at the beginning was like, well, hey, Chief, do you want me to stick around if you need me? And he's like, no, you go on ahead. We saw him a little bit at the very beginning. We see him here at the end. He introduces himself and they shake hands. And so you don't see anything, but, Adam, which is Matthew McConaughey character, looks up and says, "You're a good man." And his wife is there, who's pregnant, is turning around or whatever like that. He's like, "Yeah, God's will is done." And she's like, "Yeah, that's great." And it just, I did like that ending. I admit, I kind of popped for that. I like the whole handshake bit and at the end there with that kind of a comment. And I know it sounds kind of hokey, but for me, I'll go with my final thoughts here. Brilliantly acted movie, very decently written. There's only one or two little weak spots or plot holes or whatever you want to call them. I like really watching the two kids change from the beginning to the end. And I love how they just split up what would be a monotonous killer movie with the bits of more of the thriller part, the detective part of it, with the present of McConaughey, talking in the back seat with Powers Booth character and all that until they get to the very end. And I like the ending, which I thought, how do you really end a movie like this and really nail the ending? Well, make it true, make it believable, and not make it over the top. And that's what I thought the genius about this movie was, is that it lingered on the stuff long enough to fill you with that sense of dread. They didn't go, I thought, too hokey at the end, and the kids were fantastic. Um, just a great film from top to bottom. I highly recommend it, and that's why for me it was the best movie of 2001. What about you?
I said like it's just a one and done movie for me. I'll probably never watch it again. I did not hate it. I just thought it was kind of predictable. Um, I mean, if I watch it again, I might notice some different things a little differently, but it's just not my cup of tea.
Sure, I know you're more geared towards
I
the
mean,
action, but yeah, I saw different stuff when I rewatched it too.
like yeah, well, this is late '90s. Every girl wanted to be like Meg Ryan, have the hairstyle.
What does that got to do with frailty?
The sheriff's wife, the secretary at the sheriff, she had the Ryan haircut.
Oh, okay. You got me. You got me. Would you recommend it?
Yeah, if you want to see kids going crazy. Uh, I mean, I there wasn't enough blood for me, kind of, because I'm used to watching Evil Dead. You know, Ash vs Evil Dead. Whenever he hits him with the axe, the blood splat on his face or hit the light bulb. So seeing there's no blood splats, I was like, oh, it's just tame. It's like,
That's why I liked
I
it,
wanted,
because you didn't see
I
that
wanted, I
stuff.
want, I wanted the little 8-year old to have blood splat on his face. Hit the
Yeah.
guy. Really, just trailing lines of being like, because what was the movie? Radar or PG-13? I can't remember.
I would assume are, but I really don't know. And the way ratings are, that movies, the way they were rated in the 80s and stuff, just it was different than now with what they would censor out and everything. You had a lot of boobies and
But
stuff back then, and now you kind of don't.
I,
But blood's
I,
acceptable, and who knows?
I mean, the two best actors in this whole entire movie, I thought was younger Fenton and I gotta say Bill Paxton. Anthony McConaughey is all right. You know, he's playing a deranged serial killer. You know,
Hmm.
but yeah, that kid that plays Fenton, the younger brother, he was it like they did a movie 2000, and then he took off acting for 2 years because his dad died the next year.
Oh, jeez.
His
Wow.
dad died of cancer in September of that year, I believe it was. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things we like to do here on the A2 Extreme Horror Show. This is a movie that I always thought was pretty good. Hadn't watched it in a long time, but recently on our Top 10 Tuesdays, we covered a lot of movies, and so when we just topically go over these, because sometimes we'll do deep dives, I just thought, man, is this movie as good as what I remember from 20 years ago? I don't know. Let me rewatch it and let's talk about it. And I always like to point out because we had a lot of interest from people that aren't normally a part of our current stream, but and we've had some recent subscribers and some tweets and stuff, which I appreciate. I always joke about you, Doctor, being a millennial in the group, not maybe necessarily of seeing a lot of older stuff. So that's why we cover stuff on the classics and the sci-fi, and then of course we do like our
Yeah,
top 10 lists. But for me, yeah, this is a solid movie. I think this would be just as good as any movie coming out today. I think it's just a gem of a movie that not a lot of people talk about, and it's definitely one of Paxton's best performances to me.
yeah. I like to think of you as the Lance Henriksen of the group because you're always talking about millennials, millennium.
I'm not offended by that because I really like the show Millennium. I actually liked it a little bit more than the X Files, although X Files had a certain uh, length to it that Millennium wasn't able to give. But Lance Henriksen we talk about a lot more in the sci-fi part, but he's a favorite of ours too.
I just want I want Fenton to go back in the movie and be like, I want to believe.
Man, they could redo this and have Lance Henriksen at his advanced age. That'd be
Dude, I would
fantastic.
I would have loved I would love to seen this movie now. I would have loved to have a reboot of The Shining back then. Have a Bill Paxton play Nick Nicholson's character.
Yeah, because we think of Game Over, man. We think a lot of stuff with Bill Paxton's. We think of the pork
Bill
sandwich and all this
dude,
stuff, but
oh
we think of
dude,
him in True Lies. I mean, but when this came out, it's like, holy
no.
crap, he really nailed it.
Dude, the best Bill Paxton movie hands down is I still to today is Trespass.
On that note, I will not trespass into that questionable decision making you just decided to share with everybody. For the doctor, for myself, Rob here, I'd like to say thanks for listening, everybody. Look forward to something else next week when the doctor and I reach into the video vault and pick out a gem of ours. Will it be horror? Will it be sci-fi? Will it be an action movie? Who knows? But stay tuned for that.
Oh,
I'd like to say
yeah,
thanks for
and
coming on board, Doctor. What were you going to say?
I was just saying, thank everybody for listening to us while we hack away at this movie.
Boy, oh God, that's just. Where's my Otis? He's
Oh,
laying around here somewhere.
I'm sorry. Am I giving you a splitting headache?
Good night, everybody. Stay extreme.
Toodles.